Her sound is wind slipping through broken glass, and it feels like a whisper calling her name. Dr. Evelyn Cross steps through the gate and the chain sighs. She wants the truth buried here. She fears what it will take from her. The sky is pewter and the old sign swings slow, creaking like a metronome. Gravel shifts under her boots and dust climbs in thin spirals. Evelyn said, "I will not turn back." The main hall yawns, a rib cage of beams and shadow. A faint metallic click travels the corridor, like a patient pressing a nurse bell from another year. The air smells of wet plaster, cold iron, old antiseptic. She finds the door, marked word C, and the latch resists, then gives. Behind it, darkness breathes. Her flashlight peels paint into flakes of snow. The beam lands on a ledger, open to a torn page. The last line ends mid-word, as if a hand was pulled away. Silence thickens, then a drip finds rhythm, and the corridor keeps time. Evelyn scans the ledger's spine and sees a stamp from 1950. She wants names, dates, the pattern no one faced. She fears the line that will point at her own past choices. The flashlight hums and a low buzz answers from the wall. Evelyn said, "Someone tried to erase this." The paper smells of damp linen and moth. Footprints trail weakly through dust, not hers, not new. The beam catches a brass key embedded in plaster as if it fled the lock and froze. She pockets it, and the floor creaks under weight, not moving. A faint clink echoes behind her, gentle as a coin set on glass. She turns, slow, breath held. The corridor is empty, but the dust has a fresh cut through it. The hum deepens like a far engine. Evelyn follows the dust cut and keeps to the wall. She wants to map every step to memory. She fears the pull that makes people vanish. Evelyn said, "Who walked ahead of me?" The beam finds a door labeled Records Annex. The handle is cold and slick, and the sign below reads Authorized Staff Only. Her pulse taps under the glove. She pushes in and the smell shifts to ink and mildew. Metal shelves lean like tired soldiers. A box sits alone on a stool, as if waiting. The lid has a number that matches the torn page. She lifts it. Inside lie patient tags and a rolled blueprint, edges charred. The blueprint crinkles and a new corridor appears under the morgue. Wind presses the windows and makes them chatter. Evelyn flattens the blueprint on a steel table. She wants a route to the truth that will hold. She fears the cost of following it. Evelyn said, "Under the morgue." Lines meet in a circle marked Therapy, B. In the margin, a faint pencil note repeats a date. The ink on patient tags has bled into soft halos. She snaps a photo and the flash bites the dark. From the hall, a shoe scuffs once. Then stillness returns like a door closing somewhere far off. Her breath slows. She folds the map along the original creases and slides it into the satchel. The table ticks as if cooling. The window sighs open a fraction with the next gust. She steps back into the hall and the building feels awake. Somewhere, a loose cable taps metal in a steady code. Evelyn wants to reach the morgue stairs before doubt gathers. She fears the voice that says, "Leave it buried." Evelyn said, "Show me what you hid." Her light sweeps past peeling murals, pale faces with blank eyes. The air cools as she descends a short flight. A sign points down with a missing arrowhead. The steps groan and answer her weight one by one. At the landing, the corridor splits, left to laundry, right to morgue. The right side exhales a colder breath that smells like key oil and stone. She turns right. The darkness leans toward her, waiting. What if the next door opens itself? Alarms crackle to life, as if the building wakes angry. Lights strobe weakly, and the corridor swells with a metal hum. Evelyn runs toward the morgue stairs and the floor shudders. She wants the map to match the ground. She fears the ground will swallow it. Clara catches up, breath sharp. Clara said, "You missed something back there." Evelyn said, "You moved my markers." The ceiling vent rattles and cold air knifes down. Footfalls multiply behind them, then fade, then return close. The stairwell door is jammed by a bent hinge. Jonah appears from the dark with a ring of keys and a look that won't forgive. Jonah said, "You weren't meant to open Ward C." The hinge squeals and the door leaps free. A low growl of water rolls from below like a rush waiting to choose them. Silence gathers in a storage room that smells of paper and bleach. They close the door and the world thins to breath. Evelyn studies the blueprint by foam glow. She wants a clean path. She fears any path will cost them trust. Clara said, "I came to help, not to be accused." Jonah said, "Help means you stop lying about the tools you moved." The sound outside settles into distant pipes, ticking like cooling bones. Evelyn softens her voice and the edge in it still cuts. Evelyn said, "We move together or we turn back." A chalk mark on a crate matches a symbol on the map, a small circle with a cross. She runs a finger over it and finds a hidden vent latch. Calm breaks. The crate shifts when she pulls. Air pours cold and sure from the wall. They crawl into the vent and the metal rings under each move. Control lives here, not with them. The hum grows pure and tuned, like a machine waiting for orders. A speaker crackles and a calm voice enters the duct. Malcolm said, "Stay where you are. Security is on the way." Evelyn stills and swallows heat. Jonah said, "He wired the sublevels years ago." The air shifts and a red glow works along the seam. Malcolm said, "You have material you don't understand. Hand it over and go home." The voice is velvet and it closes doors. Evelyn said, "We found what you buried." The glow fades. A metal gate at the end of the vent slides open by itself. The duct exhales and the choice is shaped by his hand. They drop into a maintenance bay where water threads down chains like thin silver. Silas stands by a breaker panel with a coat that knows long nights. The room hums low and honest. Silas said, "Maps lie. Floors don't." Evelyn lets the pace slow and listens. She wants his truth. She fears his price. Silas points to the blueprint and then to a wall that sounds hollow. Silas said, "Therapy B was not therapy. It was rehearsal." He lays a hand on the breaker and the hum dips. He speaks of coils tuned to earth, noise, and minds tuned to forget. Jonah looks away as if memory can't be seen. Silas said, "Open the bay and the town will hear old music." The chains sway. His warning feels like a door closing in the chest. Evelyn steadies the map and the world snaps back to motion. She wants to choose action over fear. She fears choosing wrong. Evelyn said, "We open the bay, we record, we get proof." Jonah said, "We might not get back." Clara's eyes shine with something she won't name. Silas pulls a wrench and nods like a quiet blessing. The bolts give with small screams. The panel yawns and cold air rolls out, dry and electrical. A corridor beyond slopes toward a circle on the floor. Evelyn said, "We go now." Her pulse climbs. The room answers with a steady beat from somewhere below. They cross the threshold and the dark folds around them like a curtain that knows their names. The corridor softens into a quiet chamber lined with coil frames asleep in dust. Calm floats on the air, a thin mercy. Evelyn lowers her light and the space feels almost kind. She wants to believe safety. She fears the flaw in that thought. A portable lamp clicks on and washes the room in warm gold. Clara said, "Finally, something not trying to kill us." Jonah almost laughs and stops halfway. Silas tests the coil and it stays dead. Evelyn's shoulders drop. The hush is a lie that tastes sweet. Clara said, "Let's catalog and leave." Evelyn said, 2 minutes to breathe." In the corner, a locked cabinet waits with no dust on the handle. Quiet does what quiet always does. It hides teeth. They sit on cases and let breath return. The lamp hums like a soft engine. Evelyn traces the cabinet lock with a light touch. She wants trust to hold for 1 hour. She fears minutes are already breaking. Jonah said, after this, we seal it for good. Clara hands Evelyn a small pry tool without meeting her eyes. Clara said, use this. I found it in storage. Silas studies the lamp cord and frowns. Evelyn eases the tool under the lock plate and listens for a clean sound. The metal gives with a polite click. Inside rests tape reels, marked Phase 3, and a folder stamped with a symbol from the blueprint. The air cools. The lamp flickers. Something in the room changes its mind. A speaker high in the wall wakes with a soft click. Malcolm speaks as if he stands between them. Malcolm said, you opened what I asked you not to open. Control lands in the room like a hand on a shoulder. Evelyn's jaw sets. Evelyn said, you funded lies. Malcolm said, I protected a town. The lamp steadies. The coils feel taller. Silas steps back, eyes narrowed. Jonah said, power roots are live. Malcolm said, you have my property and a choice. The voice is velvet over wire. Evelyn watches Clara's fingers brush the lamp switch. The room holds its breath. The room holds its breath. Question hangs in the metal air and sharpens to a point. The lamp dies. Darkness folds tight, and then the coils bloom with a pale ring. Clara moves fast and pulls the tape folder from Evelyn's hands. Evelyn's breath catches like glass. Evelyn said, Clara, the name is a cut. Clara said, he said you'd burn it for glory. Jonah lunges and stops when the coils hum higher. Silas whispers a word that sounds like leave. The speaker stays silent now, letting the betrayal speak by itself. Clara steps toward a side door lit by a slim exit bar. Evelyn's heart pounds in her ears like a train crossing. The ring light skates across metal and finds the path she cannot take. Trust pours out of the room and leaves a hollow shape. Silence slams down after the door seals. Evelyn steadies her breath, and the room steadies with her. She wants the reels back. She fears what they prove. Jonah said she was with him. The truth lands heavy but exact. Silas kneels by a panel and finds a manual release. He does not look up. Silas said, there is another way to the annex. Evelyn gathers what remains and the absence feels loud. The coil hum eases like a storm thinning. She sees the small symbol on the floor again, the circle with a cross. It points to a seam in the wall they missed. She touches it. The seam warms. A narrow door unseals with a hush that sounds like yes. Act 4 is already reaching for them. Stillness returns like dust settling after a storm. The hidden seam door breathes cold air and quiet. Evelyn feels the echo of Clara's exit beating in her ribs. She wants a reason that doesn't shatter trust. She fears the one that does. Jonah steadies the lamp and lowers his eyes. Jonah said, we move or we drown in this. Silas listens to the room as if it can confess. Pipes click like distant metronomes, counting down old sins. The air tastes of iron and paper. Light drips along the wall and finds a second mark. A twin circle and cross, smaller and newer. Evelyn said, someone updated the map. The note is fresh pencil, not archive ink. It points toward a shallow alcove sealed with painted bolts. Behind that paint waits the kind of truth that changes roads. They chip paint from the bolts, and the alcove opens on a small archive box wrapped in tar paper. The smell rises first. Alcohol, old adhesive, burned dust. Evelyn lifts the lid and the past unspools. The reels whisper, and memory climbs the walls. She sees a room like this, Brighter, cleaner, 1950 stamped on a clipboard. Lila Ward signs a discharge and looks away. Ruth Mallory laughs to calm a boy. A coil sings a narrow note that threads a headache into silence. Malcolm's surname appears on a donor plaque. Younger hands, but the same shape of control. The present breathes through her. Silas said, "This is how it started." Jonah nods once, a hard yes. A carbon letter explains a program to erase grief by erasing connection. The last line says one word: permanent. They follow a narrow stair to a glass booth above a circular room. The coil array waits like a crown of wire. A speaker is dead, but the glass holds fingerprints in a pattern of hesitation. Evelyn presses her hand beside them and feels a ghost warmth that is only her pulse. Evelyn said, "You knew." Silas looks at the floor and answers with breathing first. Silas said, "I stored the tapes when the board told me to bury them. I thought I saved lives by hiding them." Jonah's jaw tightens, then loosens. The booth hums as power comes in small sips. Evelyn watches a meter climb. She hears a heart monitor that isn't here. Truth stands in the doorway like a visitor who will not sit. It carries a new purpose that does not forgive delay. The intercom breathes, and then speaks with velvet steel. Malcolm said, "At last an audience that will listen." His voice is patient and pleased. He thanks no one and claims everything. Malcolm said, "This town begged to forget. We gave mercy." Evelyn tastes the word and finds poison at the core. Evelyn said, "You took consent by breaking it." Silence tilts and finds balance. Malcolm said, "We prevented wars inside families. We cut the rope before it snapped necks." The glass booth reflects her face in shards. Jonah grips the rail and does not look away. The room shrinks, choice grows. Malcolm said, "If you publish, you will reopen every wound we closed." The line blurs and draws again. Thinner, sharper, everywhere at once. Evelyn lets the fear stand beside her and not in front. She sees the reels, the letter, the names. She hears breath that is hers and also theirs. Evelyn said, "So this was the truth all along." The words are soft and heavier than any door. Jonah's gaze steadies like a hand on her back. Silas closes his eyes and opens them changed. Evelyn feels something shed, not hope, but the need to be liked by the lie. She chooses the road that hurts and heals. She gathers the folder and points to the service tunnel on the map. Evelyn said, "We take it to daylight, then we tell it all." The booth lights dim as if the room understands. Clarity does not make the floor safer. It makes each step chosen. The way forward is narrow, and it finally belongs to her. Footsteps stack in the tunnel like a drumline. The lights flicker as if blinking away a thought. Air tightens and carries metal and rain. Evelyn lifts the folder and sets her shoulders. She wants the exit before the net drops. She fears the net is already down. Jonah kills his lamp to read the darkness. Jonah said, "Two ahead, one behind." Silas breathes through his nose and counts the flickers. The hum swells, then dips, a held note before impact. Malcolm said, "Stop where you are." The voice comes from a wall plate, close and clean. Evelyn said, "No." The corridor narrows and the floor pitches a fraction left. The clash takes shape like a door opening on the run. They reach the next hatch and the wheel refuses to turn. The first guard appears in strobe slices, then another, then a third shadow. Evelyn said, "We have evidence and names." Malcolm said, "You have ghosts and guilt." The words spark like wires crossing. Jonah steps forward and holds ground. Jonah said, "Let her pass." The guard raises a baton and the tunnel breathes in. The hit never lands. Silas throws the main breaker on the branch and darkness stamps out the strobe. Boots scrape. A baton skids. Evelyn moves with the absence of light, counting beats. She feels the wheel loosen a notch. Malcolm said, "Every name you speak will rip a family open." The clash sharpens and then smears in black. The hatch gives another quarter turn, and hope shifts across the floor. Silas finds the manual bypass and smiles without joy. Silas said, "This buys you 30 seconds. He pulls a fuse and the tunnel answers with a howl of old air. A guard lunges and Jonah takes the hit to the shoulder with a grunt that empties him but not his will. Evelyn whispers a thank you she cannot finish. Silence gathers in the middle of the fight and frames it like a picture. Silas lifts the panel and jams the wrench into the gear. He looks at her as if seeing a future he can't enter. Silas said, "Go." The gear snaps back through the wrench and the shock takes him to one knee. The hatch frees. Evelyn turns the wheel and feels the cost in her bones. The door unlatches and the bill is paid. They spill into a larger chamber where water beads on pipes like sweat. The array stands beyond a grated bridge, awake and pale. Malcolm's voice follows, calm as winter. Malcolm said, "Step away and I turn it off." Evelyn steps forward instead. Evelyn said, "We step through and you stand in daylight with us." The coil ring rises to a hiss and lights chase one another like a crown on fire. Jonah limps to the bridge control and drags the lever. The gate halves lift slow, teeth showing. A guard reaches for her and misses as steam erupts from a vent. Evelyn crosses the bridge and the floor trembles. She holds the folder to her chest like a heart. The world chooses now. She chooses now back. Up. The chamber quiets in a single long exhale. The bridge settles and the lever locks. Evelyn stands on the far side and feels the pulse slow. She wants to run and she doesn't. She wants to breathe and she does. Jonah leans to the rail and lets pain be real. Silas sits and holds the broken wrench like proof that choices were made. No sirens yet. Only the soft drip of water in a coil, cooling with a ticking like rain on tin. Evelyn said, "It ends when the truth is heard." The folder is warm from her grip. The light above finds color in the dust and makes a small halo on the floor. The image settles inside her like dawn in an empty street. Something ended here. Something else is waking. Quiet returns like a careful hand smoothing a wrinkled sheet. The array's last breath fades into a soft tick that counts down to nothing. Water drips in the distance, steady as a metronome for grief. Pale light seeps through a vent and cools the steam. Evelyn holds the folder and feels how heavy paper can be. She wants to speak and chooses not to. Jonah exhales a long thread and leans on the rail. Silas tests his knee and nods once, a small victory that hurts. The floor warms as the machines cool. Dust hangs, then falls, then rests. Evelyn said, "It's over for now." The words are true and not enough. The chamber looks smaller without the hum. The bridge looks longer. She sees where trust snapped and where it held. Something is missing and will not return. In the service tunnel, the air is new and thin. Evelyn traces the map crease with a thumb and meets her reflection in a wet wall. She remembers the first step through the gate and the sound the chain made. She remembers Clara's hand offering the tool, a gift with a hook. The memory does not shout. It breathes. Jonah wraps his shoulder and looks away so pain can pass. Silas ties the fuse back with calm fingers. Evelyn said, "We did not save everyone." The line lands, soft and deep. Footsteps from above become morning workers, not guards. A bird cries somewhere impossible. The tunnel, once a threat, now feels like a hallway in an old house. Life seals its cracks slowly. She does not forgive yet. She lets the idea stand nearby and wait its turn. They reach the annex where the lamp still holds a tired glow. Time slows as if the room respects sorrow. Jonah places the broken wrench on the table like a medal. Silas finds a chair and sits with the ease of someone paying a bill. The blueprint waits, edges curled. Evelyn sets the folder beside it and touches the symbol that guided them. She hears laughter from years ago. A nurse calming a frightened boy. A promise to be quick. It is only air moving through old holes, but it carries a face. Evelyn said, "Lila, we will say your name." The sound is gentle and refuses to vanish. Jonah nods once, and that is enough. Forgiveness is not a door. It is a window you learn to open without breaking the frame. Silas opens a small envelope hidden in the box and finds a note in cramped print. The words feel like someone whispering from a pocket. Silas reads the line once, then again. Silas said, "If the coils sing, remember the names first." He folds it and sets it on the blueprint like a compass. Evelyn hears an echo of his warning from the bay and understands its root. The mentor she wanted did not exist. The one she had was a man who failed, then tried again. Jonah said, "He came back when it counted." The room brightens a shade. The past does not soften. It becomes legible. A small smile touches her. Not happy, just honest. The coil ring below them is quiet. And that quiet is part of the message. They climb toward daylight, each step a sentence ending with breath. Outside the gate, the rain has stopped, and the road holds a thin mirror of sky. Evelyn calls a local paper and says very little. She promises documents, not drama. Jonah secures the reels in a dry case. Silas locks the annex behind them and pockets nothing. Evelyn said, "We name the lost and show the method. The plan is simple and heavy." A wind brushes the cracked sign and sets it to a slow swing. The chain does not complain this time. She takes one last look at the door towards sea and feels the ache of what it took. Then she turns away. Closure is not a finish. It is a direction. The world is changed. So are they. Morning settles over Black Hollow like linen hung to dry. No sirens, no hum, only wind fussing with grass. Evelyn stands at the gate and watches steam drift from vents and fade into sky. She thinks of names she has learned and ones she will learn when the town speaks. Jonah rests by the stone pillar and lets quiet mend what speed broke. Silas checks the case handle and does not let go. Evelyn said, "We carry it to daylight." The line feels smaller now that the sun agrees. A truck passes far off and does not slow. The world continues, kind and rude. The cost remains, the proof remains. She breathes in the thin cold and lets it stay. Was it enough? Was it worth it? The question does not need an answer yet. They walk the long road to town. Each step pulls the night farther behind. Evelyn keeps to the shoulder and counts fence posts like chapters. Jonah said, "When it is out, let it be out." The advice holds like a rail. Silas adds nothing and keeps pace. The folder rides against her ribs, a second heartbeat that chooses not to slow. Crows lift from a field and spread across the pale sky like ink in water. She imagines doors opening, some to comfort, some to anger. She imagines a memorial that is only names and a bench. At the bend they turn and do not look back. The building shrinks to a shape, and then to a story that will not fit in a box again. In the small newsroom, the air smells of ink and coffee gone quiet. Evelyn lays the folder on the desk and the editor listens with both hands still. She plays one tape and the room fills with a thin voice describing phase 3. There is no music and none is needed. Silas said, "Keep the letter with the reels." Jonah adds a list of names written careful and plain. The editor nods and says little. The tape clicks, then moves, then clicks again. A single sentence stays when the sound stops. The voice on the reel said, "If we forget, we vanish while breathing." The room holds that line like a candle wind cannot touch. It feels like the theme of a life. Days pass and the town changes its sound. Doors close softer. Conversations begin with names, not rumors. In the square, a small crowd gathers around a board where pages are posted. Evelyn watches from the edge and lets the scene belong to them. Jonah thanks a stranger who says nothing, only touches his shoulder and leaves. Silas stands by a tree and looks taller. The air is warmer, though the season has not moved. A bell rings noon and the flock of steps continues. The narrator in her head grows quiet. She does not need it to speak every moment. Change is a rhythm, not a shout. At dusk, she returns to the gate alone and sets one small item on the step. The broken wrench cleaned and bright. Wind lifts a strand of hair and lets it fall. Evelyn said, "Truth must never be owned." The line leaves her and does not return. The sign creaks once and then is quiet. She touches the chain and it does not catch her skin. The vent exhales a warmer breath, like a house learning to sleep without the machine. She walks away without counting steps. The road keeps her pace and the dark keeps its distance. The last light holds the shape of the building and then lets it go. What remains is a promise, and it is enough.